Hey, before you read about it on Facebook or Twitter or hear about it from your friends, find out what today's big stories really mean with me, Sean Hannity, today at 2, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Dan and Amy, oh, there's my microphone.
Well, hello.
I don't know. I got
PhD, press here, dummy. No, I'm just kidding. That
it wasn't on me.
I know.
They're conspiring against me, all of them.
Sabotage.
We're going to get to a new study out from the Urban Institute about the effects of tax credit scholarships in Florida. They've been around for more than 15 years now, so they've got a good body of data to analyze and assess. And that's relevant to us, of course, since tax credit scholarships are just coming online in Illinois as a result of the school funding deal that was struck recently, and ostensibly to start as soon as next school year. But let's wrap up a couple quick calls on Bruce Rauner and his future. Barbara in Palos Heights, you're in Chicago's Morning Answer.
Whoops. Hi. I just wanted to say I have my Citizens for Rauner envelope with their stamp on it. I am sending it back, asking for my money back, and to be removed from their list.
All right. Thanks for the call, Barbara. Sean from Elmwood Park.
Poignant way to protest. Hi,
First
Sean.
off, Prof, I'll get to you in a minute, Amy. First off,
You have 30 seconds.
I don't want to kill the babies. Okay? Now, you're certainly not going to take my money and kill the babies. It's a violation of the takings clause. So beat Pat Hughes off his Grand Slam breakfast, and let's sue this son of a dog. Number one. Number two, Amy, what do you mean she's threatening him with divorce? How many multi-millionaires out of Viagra drip willing to pucker up for that mean grinder you think are out there? Her options are limited, baby. She's not going anywhere.
Thanks for the call, Sean, and the comic relief of sorts. Okay. Talk about from the alpha to the omega. We go from Sean from Elmwood Park's review to this study I was referencing, which is important and sobering. The Urban Institute, some of the highlights. This is the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship Program. If a student stays in private school via the tax credit for 2 years, college enrollment increases by between 9 to 14% compared to public school students. If a student stays in private school for 3 years via the scholarship, college enrollment increases by 19 to 25% compared to public schools students. And for 4 years, 37 to 43% increase compared to public school students. So just on that metric alone, in terms of kids, and the Florida State Tax Credit Scholarship Program disproportionately serves minority kids. It's mostly Latinos and African Americans. It's mostly lower income families. So in terms of access to post-secondary education for that cohort of students and families, these results are pretty encouraging with respect to all of the challenges that we have at K through 12 education here, including for those demographics. For more on this study, we're pleased to be joined by Dan Kuehn. He's a research associate for the Urban Institute and the co-author of the study, The Effects of Statewide Private School Choice on College Enrollment and Graduation, which we'll post, I'll tweet out, and all that jazz as well. Dan, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So kind of give us the abstract and verbal form of the methodology that you pursue to gather the results that you've delineated in this paper.
Sure. So your point that, at this point we have a lot of data on Florida because it's been operating since the early 2000s is really the key, because our paper is different from a lot of other school choice studies because we're looking at the long-term outcomes, specifically enrollment in college and degree attainment. And so you don't just need a lot of students in the program. You need to give them time to enroll in college and go through college to see what effect that has. So we looked at students that have been out of high school for long enough that they had the opportunity to go through college from 2004 to 2010 that were in the Florida Tax Credit Program, which we call the FTC program. And we compared them to public school students that didn't participate in the program that had the same characteristics. So we statistically adjusted the public school students so that it looked like the FTC students on all their characteristics, on demographics, test scores, experience in the schools, which schools they attended. that sort of thing. And so then, so in a sense, it kind of mimics a random assignment study, random assignment to the FTC program. And so then you can compare their college outcomes and identify the impact that the FTC program had on participants.
I wonder if there was any residual benefit you saw, or residual improvement, I guess I should say, that you saw in the performance of public school students. Because one of the arguments that's often made is this competition, the choice that these tax credit scholarships provides actually improves the quality of the public schools as well.
Yeah, and we didn't look directly at this for this program, but one of the best studies on that competitive effect is actually also on the Florida program. There is a study published in 2014, and they did find that competition from schools that participated in the FTC program improved public schools that were close by. So there seems to be good evidence that there's a positive spillover, at least in the case of this Florida program. And that's also relevant for these student outcomes because we're comparing to public school students. And if those public school students are also benefiting from the program, then our results might actually understate the tax credit scholarship effect to a certain extent.
Now,
you don't want to go too far with that. You don't know exactly by how much, but it definitely has a positive competitive effect based on prior research, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And how do people get involved in the program? What's the application process like, and is there a waiting list?
So everything goes through a nonprofit organization called Step Up for Students. They administer the program. They have to apply, show proof that they're income eligible. In fact, in your lead-in, you said that they're mostly low-income students, and actually they're all low-income students.
Okay.
They have to all be
All right.
below a certain multiple of the poverty line. My understanding is they don't have a particularly long waiting list. We're hoping to use the waiting list for our study if we could use that to introduce a random assignment, but it wasn't sufficient to do that. And part of the reason is the program is growing fast. The funds available from the tax credit have been growing rapidly in recent years.
Right. Just some more data. You're right. The average family income for students in the program, $25,000. So, yes, low-income students.
Yes, and during the period that we studied, they had to be free and reduced lunch eligible. So they're all under 185% of the poverty level.
About 100,000 students and 2,000 private schools currently participating in the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship. And one of the important things you mentioned, Dan, is also the scholarship granting organization Step Up for Students, because in terms of how it works in Illinois, we're talking about essentially the same superstructure. Some of the details are different, but the idea of nonprofit scholarship granting organizations through which these scholarships are distributed.
Yep.
And so,
and that's,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that that's key as well if we think about scaling this type of program in other parts of the country. In the report, we're actually cautious about that precisely because these programs vary so much in how they're structured and how they're implemented. So you want to be careful in taking a single study of Florida and saying it will work either at the federal level or in other states. But the fact that Illinois is structured similarly might make this more relevant to you guys out there.
One other question. Did you do the achievement gaps across racial lines? And obviously we're talking about everybody kind of from the same socioeconomic demographics in terms of household income. But the achievement gaps that exist in most places across racial lines, do they start to narrow, if not disappear, when you compare the tax credit scholarship kids to the public school kids?
So I want to be careful. Usually we think about achievement gaps in terms of test scores.
Right.
And we didn't look at test scores. That's something prior studies have looked at, but we didn't. But in terms of college enrollments, we saw roughly comparable impacts on college enrollment for Black students, white students, and Hispanic students. So so it should, in that sense, it closes the achievement gap defined in terms of college enrollment. We actually saw higher impacts on students that weren't born in the United States. They experienced some of the highest impacts of the different demographic groups that participated in the program. And part of that is because they stayed in the program longer than other students.
That's really interesting, too. Okay, he is Dan Kuehn, Research Associate for the Urban Institute, co-author of the study, The Effects of Statewide Private School Choice on College Enrollment and Graduation, which focuses on the Florida experience with tax credit scholarships, those tax credit scholarships which are coming to Illinois in a similar structure. Dan, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.